Next from Springfield, we hear testimony before the House Committee on Pensions regarding Senate Bill 1, which is designed to reduce the cost of pensions to the state. We begin with House Speaker Michael Madigan, the bill's sponsor, who testifies on the reforms. Following that, we'll hear from some of the bill's opponents. This runs about 30 minutes.
We have 10 members answering the roll. We have a quorum. We have only one item of business before us this morning, and that is House Committee Amendment number 1 to Senate Bill 1. Representative Drury moves to adopt House Committee Amendment number 1 to Senate Bill 1. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Oh, and I'd like to add Representative Burke to the roll. Welcome. So with that, we will turn to the sponsor of Senate Bill 1, Speaker Madigan.
Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the committee, this amendment would offer a comprehensive reform of the Illinois pension systems. It will bring solvency and stability to the four systems, GARS, SERS, SERS, and TRS. The concepts in the package are not new. Many of the provisions have been debated at length, and the House has already approved several of the items in the bill. Number 1, the package would adopt a 30-year actuarially sound funding schedule that will result in 100% funding of the four systems by 2044. It also changes the method of certifying state contributions. Going forward, the systems will certify contributions using what's known as the entry age normal actuarial cost method, which will result in more level payments. The House has already adopted this change in House Bill 1277, sponsored by Representative Singer. 2, the state commits to contribute nearly $1 billion annually once the state has finished paying the current pension obligations. This additional contribution will continue until all systems reach their funding goal. 3, the bill includes a strong funding guarantee. If the state fails to make a required payment under the funding schedule or fails to contribute the additional $1 billion promised, the systems will have a right to bring a mandamus action to compel the state to make the payment. 4, the bill provides a new method for calculating the COLA. Retired members will keep the compounded 3% annual increase that they've received, but going forward, the COLA will be based on 3% of a maximum annuity amount based on their years of service. 5, the salary cap currently that applies to Tier 2 will apply to Tier 1 people also. 6, the amendment raises the retirement age on a graduated scale for current Tier 1 members who are under 45 years of age. There is no change for those 45 years of age and older. This language was already approved by the House in House Bill 1166. 7, current employees will pay an additional 1% toward their pension beginning July 1, 2013, and an additional 1% beginning July 1, 2014. 8, pensions and changes to the pension code will no longer be subject to collective bargaining. Finally, the bill makes clear that the state-funded pension systems are not to use retirement contributions for the purpose of subsidizing the cost of retiree health care. Those are the highlights of the bill, and I'm available for questions.
Are there questions for the sponsor from the committee? Representative Poe.
Could you explain the health care portion just a little more?
It's simply a statement in the bill which will become Illinois law, which I think codifies the status of the situation where it would say that you cannot use pension money to pay for health care costs. Pension money is for pensions. It's not for health care costs. To my knowledge, the state systems are not doing this today, although at one time TRS did it. And then around 1995, there was an IRS ruling which brought on a change so that TRS doesn't do it today. It's done through TRIP.
So is there any other changes that we keep hearing out there and there's nothing in this bill to deal with health insurance like increase in those benefits, I mean, the cost to the retiree and the current employee?
Yeah, none of that is in here.
Representative Sanger.
I basically have two questions. Number one, it is my understanding this does not include a Tier 2 correction. And are there any plans to change Tier 2? And number two, my understanding, it does not include a cost shift, and is there plans to do a cost shift?
I have no immediate plans to change Tier 2. I think if there are people that want to change Tier 2, that's an opportunity to talk to those that are proposing changes in Tier 2. Concerning the cost shift, I plan to deal with that in another bill.
Representative Zaleski.
So, Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to take the chance to thank you for the way the House has approached the pension system. I think we were subject to a large, you personally in the House generally were subject to a lion's share of criticism about the way in which we did the special orders of the week and the way in which we built upon momentum. And for what it's worth, I think that it was a process that led us to where we are today by putting together a large number of components into a bill that hopefully can find bipartisan support. So I just wanted to thank you for that, and I'll be supporting the bill.
Okay, I don't see any other questions from members. We do have some opponents that are looking to testify. And so if we can, I'm not sure that the witness slip system has worked perfectly in this instance. So, but I do have, I know I have Michael Kerrigan with the AFL-CIO.
Madam Chair, if it's okay with you, I'm going to make a few short comments and then just keep calling on other members to make their comments also.
That would be great.
Obviously, we could be interrupted at any time for questions. Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm Michael Kerrigan, President of the Illinois AFL-CIO. I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you on this critical issue, and specifically Committee Amendment 1 to Senate Bill 1. Public employees are willing to do their part in helping to preserve their pension benefits. The problem with this amendment is there is no shared sacrifice. While we, the We Are One coalition members, have been willing to work collaboratively toward a fair and constitutional solution, this amendment represents a diminishment of benefits clearly prohibited by the Illinois Constitution. Fixing a funding issue on the backs of public sector workers, hardworking Illinoisan workers, by slashing their retiree benefits is not good policy and will result in a legal challenge certain to be successful. So with that, I'd like to introduce John Stevens with Freeborn and Peters, We Are One Legal Counsel.
I am John Stevens from Freeborn and Peters, here on behalf of the We Are One Coalition. You've heard from me before on various permutations of this bill. I'm here to give you my opinion that by making unilateral cuts in constitutionally protected benefits, this bill fails to pass constitutional muster under the Illinois Constitution, either under a pension clause analysis or a contracts clause analysis. We strongly urge you to look for a constitutional solution to this funding problem, working collaboratively with the parties at the table here today. I'm available for questions.
Madam Chair, if it's okay, we'll go to Henry Bear, AFSCME State Counsel.
My name is Henry Baer. I'm the Executive Director of AFSCME Council 31. We represent approximately 40,000 state employees who are in the state-funded pension system, and also about 6,000 university employees who are also in the state-funded system. This bill, in part, does address the crux of the pension problem. It does address the problem of underfunding. It does guarantee that if the state doesn't make its payments to the pension funds, that the pension funds have the ability to sue the state, go to court, get a writ of mandamus, and ensure that the payments are made. Had that provision of this bill been in law 30 years ago, we wouldn't be here today. We are here today because of a problem created when the state put its payments to the pension funds on the credit card. As a consequence, the amount of money that was paid into the pension fund this year, for instance, over $6 billion that was paid into the pension fund, of that amount, $1.5 billion is for the normal cost. That is the benefits that employees in all the systems are earning. And I say employees, also those in GARs and judges, is $1.5 billion of the more than $6 billion payment. So had that provision of this bill been in place, and had we been adhering to the law, instead of putting $6.5 billion into the pension fund this year, we'd be putting $1.5 billion into the pension fund this year, about 3% of the overall, or maybe even a little less than that, of the overall state budget. So we're glad to see that that problem is being addressed, because it needs to be addressed. It's the reason we are here today. However, the bill, if it stopped there, would be fine, but it goes much further. It slashes benefits to active and retired teachers, state police, correctional officers, caregivers in our veterans home, and caregivers to individuals with developmental disabilities, and many other people who provide services to the citizens of this state. Now, Illinois does not have a generous pension plan. We are in the bottom quarter of all states in terms of the benefits paid to people in state-funded systems. That is not the problem. Yet this bill slashes those very modest benefits. I believe the last time I looked at the figures in the SCRS, for example, there was the average pension for someone on the standard formula was $24,000 a year. By our calculation, under this bill, that the benefits that someone would earn after 20 years of retirement would be about 30% less than what they are today.
Mr. Baer, can you bring your remarks to a close?
I'll conclude my remarks. You know, there's a debate going on in Washington now about Social Security, and there's a fight to preserve Social Security and ensure that those benefits are not cut. 80% of the people in the state-funded pension plans have no Social Security. If you will, their pension is their Social Security. And the cuts that are contained in this bill go way beyond the cuts that are contained in the chain CPI, which has provoked so much controversy. This bill would undermine retirement security, would, in our view, violate the Constitution, and we would urge a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Dan Montgomery, President of the Illinois Federation of Teachers.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to talk. I am Dan Montgomery, President of the IFT. Right now, I guess it's almost 9 o'clock in schools all over Illinois on this beautiful day. We have teachers who've been at work for at least a couple hours, probably, teaching class. We have university professors and community college teachers hard at work. We've got firemen on call, police on the job, nurses in hospitals, and all of them have paid out of every paycheck their contribution to their pension, whether it's 9.4% for teachers, 12% for some police, and so on. But they have made this payment every paycheck, and they're doing the work of the state as we need them to do. As we have said, benefits are not the problem here. Cutting benefits is not the solution. We have to find a solution. There's no question. We've made the point clearly and consistently in our testimony here and over the last year and a half, I suppose, that there has to be a constitutional construct. There has to be a legal way to fix this. I am convinced, I think we're all convinced, there are ways to do that. We've offered ideas over some time now, including in legislation. Sadly, those ideas, I think, have fallen on deaf ears to a great measure. And if we pursue this, if you pass this amendment, we won't be further toward a constitutional solution. We won't be further to a pension solution that the state needs. But we are looking, as Henry said, at a massive cut to benefits. We know, if you look at the causes of the pension underfunding, that something like less than 10% has any relation to benefits. The single largest cause is the underfunding over time. 2008 financial crisis is about a quarter of it. So the cutting of benefits is in fact not the path to a solution. Providing a fiscally responsible stream towards funding and other solutions can get us there. But when we have teachers and other workers who do not get Social Security being forced to accept a 30 to 35% cut in their lifetime retirement, we see that as unacceptable, especially when it doesn't offer a solution to the pension problem. And I would second those comments. Imagine if the discussion in Washington were, how do we cut Social Security by 30 to 35%? I think we as a country would agree that that is not a viable path to the kind of nation we want. And I would put it to you that this amendment is not a viable path to the kind of state we want. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montgomery.
Now I'd like to call on Cinda Klickner, President of the Illinois Education Association.
Thank you. As he said, I'm Klickner, President of Illinois Education Association. And it seems the conversation continues to just be about numbers. So let's give some numbers. Almost 700,000 people in this state rely upon a pension promised by the state. In TRS alone, that's 160,000 actives, 105,000 retirees. And in TRS alone, over $3 billion is paid out in retirement benefits, which translates into economic development in every community, every one of your districts, to over or almost $5 billion. But, you know, those are just numbers. This is about people. And to just look at numbers would be like saying to a teacher, all I want you to ever look at is the kids' test scores and scores on items, and never look at the person. A teacher never does that. And that is what this bill would do. So in every community, there are people who are relying upon this pension who do not get Social Security. And by cutting their benefits, you have hurt the economic development of this state. Because these are the people who go down on the street to the grocery store. They go to their local businesses to buy presents for their grandchildren. They pay the newspaper delivery person. They are in our communities and supporting our state. And so when you cut basic needs by this bill, every public employee will be hurt. Every community will feel the impact. And it is about people. It's about my 95-year-old father who designed highways for this state. It's about my 93-year-old mother-in-law who is a school nurse. In fact, it's about almost my entire family and every one of the people that I represent. So we can talk about numbers, we can talk about the state budget, we can talk about what something saves, but I think it is a sad state of affairs when the state ignores its people. Thank you.
Now I'd like to call upon Ted Street, President of the Fraternal Order of Police.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. House Amendment 1 to Senate Bill 1 unilaterally and illegally diminishes benefits for all state retirement systems, except the judges, even though the Illinois Constitution specifically states that pension benefits are a contractual right that cannot be diminished or impaired. The amended bill would make it impossible for retirees to keep up with the rising cost of living in retirement. Just through the COLA caps, the bill illegally cuts the value of a retiree's pension between 28 to 31%. After 20 years in retirement, on top of that, the amendment also freezes COLA until age 67, or 5 years after retirement. Pensions are the life savings of public servants. Their most reliable means of retirement security, particularly for the 80% of the workers in state-funded retirement systems not eligible for Social Security. All the while, senior citizens, as major consumers of health care services, are one of the most at-risk demographic groups subject to inflationary pressures. House Amendment 1 to Senate Bill 1 increases retirement ages between 1 and 5 years without consideration for employees with physically demanding professions, such as police, firefighters, correctional officers, and nurses. An increase in retirement age effectively causes an individual's accrued benefits to lose 6% in value for each year of the increase. A younger worker under the age of 35 in this instance would lose 30% of his or her pension value if this amendment became law. Even slightly older workers would lose 35 to 40, between the age of 30 and 40, would face a loss in value of 18%. The amendment also increases employee contributions and caps the amount of salary that earns a pension. Combined with other cuts, this further balances Illinois' pension debt on the backs of workers who did not cause the problem and paid into the pension systems out of every paycheck. Law changes made by this amendment are exempt from collective bargaining, denying democratic representational rights to hundreds of thousands of workers. Thank you.
Now I'll call on Mike Stout, a business manager with the Labor's Local 2002.
Good morning, Madam Chairperson and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to address this issue this morning. Yes, my name is Mike Stout, and I'm the business manager of Labor's Local 2002. Local 2002 represents state employees, numerous state agencies that work under collective bargaining agreements, merit comp employees that do not work under collective bargaining agreements, and also retirees. You know that our members, state employees working under a union contract, merit comp employees not working under a contract, and retirees made their pension payments twice a month, every month, since day one of their state employees, in state employment. They kept their promise. Our membership does understand there are serious problems with the funding of the state employees retirement system as well as the other state pension systems. State employees, both union and merit comp, realize that they must do more to reduce the unfunded liability. State employees are willing to make additional contributions to the system, although they have gone, some of them, 2 years without a salary increase, and merit comp employees even longer. Along with the We Are One coalition, we believe a fair and constitutional remedy can be found. If this bill is passed and signed into law, it will invite and get a legal challenge. Let's work together to find common ground, that it does not put too much burden on state employees and retirees. They did not create this problem. Please vote no.
Now I would like you to listen to Tim Sickmeyer, an actual retiree from the Police Benevolent and Protective Association. Tim is a retired conservation police officer.
Good morning, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. I represent conservation police officers and their retirees. I'm also a retiree under the alternative formula, and although I've not received a COLA yet, and I won't for another couple of years, I have watched for months the back and forth on pension reform. The latest, Senate Bill 1 with House Committee Amendment number 1, ups to be a comprehensive bill combining a lot of the same proposals from previous bills. Pension debt is a known liability, but this and previous administrations and legislatures have opted to ignore the previous warning signs, continue adding spending while not paying the bills. As a retiree, former state employee, and a police officer, I feel I've been unfairly painted by the media and the wealthy financiers to be a pariah on this state. I chose a life of public service because I like to help others. In exchange, this state made a promise to me that it appears it no longer can or is willing to keep. This body has recognized the high-risk nature of law enforcement position and also recognized that the life expectancy is reduced when a person chooses this field. Thus, state police and correctional officers are allowed to retire at an earlier age. However, conservation police officers, Secretary of State Police, and others who were in this same formula have been kicked out. It was acknowledged that it was a mistake and it could be easily remedied. In fact, we had House Bill 2600, which unanimously passed this committee and would have corrected that problem, was forced to be held and not voted on. So now the retirement age has been raised for all workers, including conservation police officers, to age 67. And this bill would then raise it possibly to age 70 or higher. We recently encountered a serious and life-threatening flood in this state. Conservation police officers were some of the first responders to brave the raging floodwaters to rescue people from their homes. How much solace would you have in knowing the CPO that is coming to rescue you or your family in rising floodwaters is 65 or 70 years old? As a retiree, I'm seeing a cost added to my pension. The first, which is set to take effect on July 1st, is a significant rise in health insurance costs. The proposed COLA adjustment appears to punish people such as me who were able to leave at an earlier age and had maxed out, as well as people who took earlier retirement based on incentives promised by the state. Since I have not received my first COLA, I will be seeing an actual cut in my pension benefits.
Mr. Sickmeyer, can you bring your remarks to a close?
Yes, ma'am. The courts will decide if this state can mess with current retiree benefits. I encourage you to seriously consider other options and not just pass something that have to rely on the courts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there questions from members for this panel? Representative Zaleski.
Mr. Baer, you mentioned at the beginning of your comments there were components of the bill you brought forth that you thought were good ideas, good policy choices, namely the funding guarantee and the additional $1 billion after the notes have been paid back. Would it be fair to say that you support those individual components of the bill?
It would be fair to say that I support the concepts there. I couldn't tell you that, that every T has been crossed and I dotted with respect to the pension system's ability to enforce the payments if the legislature chose not to do that, but it appears to, on first blush, to be very strong language, very positive language. Yes, and I would also support the concept that when the bonds are paid off, that additional money should be put in, because as we all know, the sooner we pay our bill, the less expensive it is in the long run, like any other bill. The sooner you make your payments, the less you have to pay in the long run.
So to that extent, there's portions of the bill that give workers within your systems the benefits or things they didn't have prior to the enactment of this bill.
Well, I mean, what it does, it gives the people of Illinois a benefit of not having, kicking the can down the road that we didn't have before, which has put us in the position we're now in as a state. We believe strongly that in terms of of people who are in state funded pension systems, that their benefits are guaranteed now by the Constitution, and we believe this bill tries to take that away. But that's the fundamental guarantee that our members have is the Constitution, not this bill. This bill would undermine their constitutional rights in our view.
Would it be fair to say that if this bill were to pass with the funding guarantee, that a worker within one of the systems would have a stronger ability to enforce the state's ability to make the pension payment than they have right now?
Yeah, but they would have a lesser payment at the cost of 30%. They would in fact be paying for it, because there's no other. I mean, if you think about whatever amount of money this bill might save, and I didn't hear a figure thrown out, but whatever amount of money it's saved by a reduction in benefits to the people who participate in the plans. So if you say if it saves $50 billion, that means there's 50, over the next 30 years will be a $50 billion reduction in benefit for people. So you say, well, yeah, you get a benefit, you paid for it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative McSweeney.
First, let me say that I'm going to support this legislation because I think it's a very serious effort to resolve our state's major problems. $9 billion of unpaid bills, states having problems borrowing money on a cost-efficient basis. We're here today to save your pensions, and I want to praise you and your hardworking members, and that's what I think this legislation is going to do.
The Illinois Channel's coverage of legislative issues is underwritten in part by AARP Illinois.